Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome back to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Drew McWilliams. Drew is the co-founder and CEO of IvyBrook Academy, which is a franchise concept that I got introduced to probably two and a half years ago, off the top of my head. Very cool concept and unique in a lot of ways, but I'm going to try not to steal too much of Drew's thunder here and let him introduce himself and also kind of give us a quick overview on what IvyBrook Academy is. Drew, thanks for being here, man.
Wes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, I would love to dive in and kind of answer your first question. What is IvyBrook Academy? So IvyBrook Academy is a children's preschool. We specialize between the ages of 2 to 6. Our unique proposition is really that we are a half-day preschool. So we are the only national half-day preschool out there in our country, where there's a lot of traditional daycares, which are a much needed service in our society, of catering to dual working parents that drop off children at 7 in the morning, pick them up after work at 6 p.m. And they stay there all day for breakfast and lunch and take a nap. Our school was founded 17 years ago, and we cater specifically to parents that elect to stay home to raise their children, but also realize that they want their children to have a great head start, and they want them to have the academics, and they want them to have the socialization before they go off to kindergarten, first grade. So that's kind of where our niche and our service falls in, where we partner with families to be able to educate children in what we believe is the best educational model out there for young minds. And we give parents the ability to still be with their loved ones for half the day while still educating them and setting them up for a great success once they go off to school.
Yeah, it's the half day model is great. And I mean, you and I have talked, all of our kids have been through or are currently in a half day preschool model. And let's be real here, right? This is for the parents too, right? To get a little bit of a break from their kids, and get some stuff done, even if they're, staying at home. It's nice for the parents to get a little bit of a break, but it's good for the kids to, get out, get some of that exposure, learn how to interact with other kids. And, I know that you guys with IvyBrook, you do put a lot of emphasis on the actual curriculum. So this is not like a daycare type thing, right? Where the kids are just being babysat. Like there is an actual, educational component to this and a curriculum, which I want to get into because I know that's something that more and more parents are probably looking at these days as they're looking at different school options for their kids. What is the curriculum or the style, of education that a certain school is, kind of running. But, I'd love to hear a little bit more of the backstory, because I think you just said 17 years ago, the school was created. I know you have kids, but they're not that old, right? So this wasn't one of these things where you guys kind of created it out of necessity because you couldn't find a good option for your kids. So how did the concept come about in the first place?
Yeah, it's very insightful of you to put that together with my children's age.
I'm not great at math, but
pretty good.
Arithmetic I can usually swing.
Yeah, I've got a 12 and a 14-year-old at home.
So carried the two, and they weren't quite born.
Not quite. Yeah. So IvyBrook Academy came about. My wife and I founded the company. We are college sweethearts from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and now we reside in Charlotte, North Carolina for the last 24 years. And this is very much our home. We love the Queen City.
That's awesome.
IvyBrook Academy came about. My background was in real estate. I had a pretty successful real estate career right out of college at a young age. And my wife was a first grade teacher and She taught in public education for several years, and we believe we live in a pretty good public education school district. But my wife came home one day and she said, the children that are even coming to first grade at our schools, they're just not prepared yet. Like the schools are just pushing already at such a young level, the emphasis on testing and not on education. There has to be a better way to teach students and to give them a greater head start and success in life, because they're just coming ill prepared even by the time they get to first grade. So talked about it, came up with the idea actually on our honeymoon. And
Nice. I love that.
Yeah, the
You're
coolest.
able to write your honeymoon off is what I'm hearing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. If I had an LLC and it could expense that would have been an amazing.
That would have been legit. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were on a plane on the way to Hawaii, and the stewardess comes out and hands you a Coke and a napkin, and on that napkin, on the back of the napkin, I gave it to my wife and I said, all right, we've been talking about this for a while now and giving it some thought. I said, what would this school look like? Like if you could be an architect, what would it look like? Here's a pen, here's a cocktail napkin, go. We came back from our honeymoon and I interviewed architects. I gave that napkin to an architect and I told them to build my wife her dream. And that's exactly what happened. That napkin is exactly our first blueprint and exactly how that first school turned out. Took a couple years for the planning and the permitting, but we are concluding next week our 17th school year in business, and we're about to begin our 18th school year in business. That's
incredible. That's so cool. I have a question. Do you still have the cocktail napkin that these original plans were drawn on?
It is. We have moved twice in the last 18 years. So it is in some box somewhere in an attic or a basement. And I feel like that needs to be framed in an archive, and I can't find that napkin fast enough, but it's
that would be cool to have. And yeah, frame it. I don't know if you've ever, it reminds me a bit of, they're a franchise now too called Walk-On's Sports Bistro.
Okay.
Originated out of Louisiana, Baton Rouge. And my wife went to LSU. So I chased her down there after I finished college, and the original Walk-Ons is like right next to LSU's football stadium.
Oh, wow.
And the story is the two guys that started the business were both walk-on players for the LSU basketball team. They never played, but they spent all this time together practicing on the road, for games and whatnot, and for years had talked about like how cool it'd be to start a sports bar. And the story goes that they did something very similar. They had a bar napkin, and they drew out kind of the floor plan of what their ideal sports bar would look like. And so now if you go to a Walk-On's, the napkins that they give you all are like replicas of supposedly what that original napkin that they came up with looked like. So that's pretty cool.
I love that. That's a good story.
You'll have to dig that up at some point. That would be a cool piece of memorabilia at this point, almost 15 years later. So, and like really cool to hear how you guys, like, it seems like we're just very decisive, right? And we're willing to take action, because how many people have these ideas and they never really go anywhere beyond that? Like, was that, I know you said you'd gotten into real estate after college and had some success. Can you think back to like those early days? Like, was there any hesitation on you or your wife's part? Like at any point where you like, yeah, but like schools are schools, right? Like the public school system, it's the state or the county or whoever that's running it. Like, how can we really come in and do our own school? Because I think for a lot of people that would seem like a pretty big undertaking. Was there any concern or hesitation around that, or did you guys just kind of say, you know what, we're going to go for it and we'll figure it out?
Yeah, and I agree. I think I talk to people all the time, and they have all these great ideas, but very few people take action. I would love to see how many people have a business idea or a thought that they follow through on, right? Because I think there's so many good ideas out there, and people are so creative, and human beings are so creative. Yes and no to your question. Hesitation, fear, any trepidation. The very first location, all right, we were in our mid-20s, no kids, living in a townhouse. I had nothing to lose. I had zero fear. All right. I
Yeah.
bought the land, built the building, signed off on a $2.1 billion loan. And it's felt like monopoly money, right? Like I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Some bank bet on me. I applied at 3 banks. 2 said no, 1 said yes. So I knew which bank I had. I mean, like, that's what it is, what it is. I didn't know.
That made that choice easy, right?
I was like, I didn't know how to negotiate terms, no one taught me this. So no fear. Now I'll tell you what is now they call corporate locations, right? Since I have franchise locations and still our home, we still own our home location. That's very much our first baby.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when we opened location number 2, my wife was pregnant. The school number 1 was so successful. I quit my corporate America job in real estate. I actually had a single family house. I had a lot to lose. I'll tell you, I was way more nervous the second time than I was the first time because I had everything to lose in the first time. Like, where am I going to go? Like, I got nothing.
Yeah, nowhere to go but up, right?
So I think it depends on your personal circumstances, right? Risk.
Yeah, it does. And so I'm curious because, like, same for my wife and I with the businesses that we've started, and I think for us too, like some of it was just a little bit of naivety in the beginning, right, where we didn't really know how hard it was going to be, or so I think in some regard we weren't as nervous as we would have been had we could have like looked into the future 2 or 3 years and been like, there's some real challenges that you have to go through building a business, and there's a lot of times that are not going to be fun or easy necessarily. And until you go through some of that, you may hear other people talk about it or read books or whatever. But, for us, I think that played in because like we've owned a couple of franchises. When we got into our second one, I can remember being more nervous, signing the agreements and, taking out the loan, wiring the funds than we were on the first one. We had more kids and, more on the line in that regard, but we also had some experience under our belts at this point to know like, all right, these are some of the challenges that we're going to have. And, we were confident, but at the same time, a little bit more. So maybe that was a bit of a factor for you guys too. I'm not sure.
For sure. It is. All of those things agreed upon, but equally the learning curve, whether, a small business owner, franchisee, franchisor, I think that learning curve is extremely important, right? To be able to see everything, be able to, make informed decisions with the information that you're given. And that kind of leads into why would people become a franchisee, right? Well, for people to ask me, why could I not just start my own preschool business? You totally should. If that is your passion and you're good with that, I applaud you and I'm going to encourage you to do it. But let me tell you, I've got 18 years of mistakes that I'm going to make sure that I don't pass on to you. And my mistakes probably equal about $1 million or more. I'm pretty sure I'm going to save you $1 million, compared to the fraction it is for a franchise fee. It's just, again, you're buying a recipe or a playbook from somebody that has already figured out what works and what doesn't, so you don't have to in life.
Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. I have this conversation all the time because many people do kind of very quickly jump to that conclusion. Why do I need to pay a franchise fee, pay a percentage of my revenue as a franchisee? I just go do it on my own. you're paying to avoid mistakes the franchisor and other franchisees have already made. In reality, you're paying to be able to run faster, is really how I've come to look at it. Because to your point, not only are mistakes expensive, but time is expensive, right? So if you can get into a business, get it open, get it running while making, fewer mistakes throughout that process, now you're getting yourself to a point where you can start actually generating an ROI much, much quicker. If it takes you 12, 18, 24 months longer doing it on your own, what's the opportunity cost of all of that time? And then compare that to, a $60,000 franchise fee. Like, you've got to look at both sides of the equation with that. So when did you guys get to the point of deciding that you had something to franchise? And maybe I'm wrong, but I assume when you guys first came up with this plan, you weren't thinking, hey, we can grow this into a national franchise. That came later.
Yeah.
So at what point did that idea kind of come about to franchise it?
Yeah. No one in their mid-20s say, I want to start out and I want to be a franchisor when I grow up, right? Like there's no franchisor, college or, university
None.
degree for that. No,
None.
We opened up our first location. I kept my corporate America job, right? Didn't know if this startup company is going to work out. Thankfully, we were very successful very early. And in about 6 months, I realized I could quit my corporate America job because my wife was starting to make more money than me. And I thought I was doing pretty well in life. And then we opened up a second location, and we ran 2 locations out of Charlotte, North Carolina for 10 years. Never thought about expanding outside of Charlotte, ever. Never heard the word franchising in my life. If you told me franchising, I would say that's what McDonald's does. Nobody else does.
Fast food.
That's a fast food concept. That's not for schools. Now that I've fallen in love with, the franchise model, I've learned recently, there's 3,500 franchisors or franchise brands and concepts, and 20% of the brands and services that, we deal with on a weekly basis in our country are a franchise base. It's crazy high percentage that people really don't realize. How franchising came about is because each of our schools, many public schools around the country, and even though we're not a public school, we have PTAs, Parent Teacher Association. Each of our IvyBrooks have a PTA, which is a great nonprofit arm to our school. And our PTA president at our corporate location, she moved. Her family got relocated for a job opportunity, relocated, and for 30 straight days, that former PTA president, she called my wife saying, you have to open up an IvyBrook here. And she moved to Iowa. Des Moines, Iowa, she moved, Wes. And she goes, my older 2 children graduated from your program and they are excelling at school. My third child, my youngest one, did not. And I can already see there is a big gap between my older 2 and this one. And they're just not at the same playing field. They don't have the same head start. You have to open here for the sake of opening my youngest child. And I'll tell you, 30 straight days. And after 30 days, we're like, Heather, I'm sorry, we can't open up in Des Moines, Iowa fast enough for you, but we need to explore this. And how my wife and I make decisions. And we've been happily married for 20 years. Now we've been business owners for 18 of those 20 years. And how we make decisions in life, both personally and professionally, are all the same. And what I mean by that is, this is how we decided to get into franchising. In my head, first of all, the statement is our head and our heart have to align for us to do something, right? The head part, for me, I go, oh my gosh, I just had 10 years of people doing market research and everyone's moving across the country saying there's not an IvyBrook anywhere, right? I don't have competition. I just had 10 years of market research saying I don't have a competitor. I got to hurry up and do it before somebody else does. And the heart side, my wife goes, oh my gosh, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of children that we can help. So when our head and our heart align like it did there, then we got to figure out a solution. And we looked into, should we expand via company expansion, licensing, franchising? And I just really, the more I dug into it, I really fell in love with franchising because it creates a win-win opportunity. And I'm a real big believer, like everyone's got to win. And
Yeah.
franchising is a team sport. It's not a competition. Like everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction. And
Yep.
when the franchisee wins, the franchisor wins. When the franchisor wins, the franchise. It's all, we all want to support and help each other. So that's kind of how we got into it. We started franchising 8 years ago. I'm very blessed to say that at the time of this recording, we just awarded our 100th location in our
That's incredible.
in our 17th state. So we've had a very great success run, and now we are helping thousands of students on a daily basis across the country. So it's a very exciting time in our company's trajectory.
Yeah. Well, and so much success. There's so many statistics out there of, because I think you mentioned 3,500 franchisors, very small percentage of them ever get beyond 10 or 20 locations, much less, 100 locations. So, that's a huge milestone. And, the even more exciting thing to think about is if you look at, IvyBrook's footprint on a map, like you guys have just scratched the surface of what's possible, even in hitting some of these milestones. So the franchising, once you really started thinking about expanding, was the clear kind of right direction for you, for some of the reasons that you mentioned. And there are other examples, of school or childhood enrichment franchises that have been around for a while. They're different, in some ways than IvyBrook. So what are some of the key differences? I mean, I think the obvious one is half day, right? A lot of these other national schools that are actually franchises, I don't believe are half day. And can you talk a little bit about the I guess the key differences in running a half day program versus a full day? Because when I started understanding some of this, it's a big difference if you're just running a half day program versus a full day program.
Yeah, two different things there. First, I call it, and I know I have a real estate background, the key term is, what's your unique selling proposition? So IvyBrook really has two. I think the more you have, the better, right? So how are you unique and different and make yourself stand out compared to competitors? You easily name drop the first one. We're a half day, right? Just being a half day model. I am absolutely going to align with some people, and I'm absolutely not going to align with some people. And I am fine with that, right? I know who my target avatar is, and we're good with that. Second, now that I'm niched down to the half day preschool, and I know your children go to a half day preschool as well, then you look at, okay, well, let's compare IvyBrook to other half day preschools. What makes us unique in that regards? Okay. We're unique in that regards is because our curriculum is proprietary. It's copyrighted. It's over thousands of pages. All right. So when we created our first preschool, we decided, hey, what kind of curriculum can we buy? Can I buy a curriculum out of a box and just insert it into IvyBrook? And we looked far and wide, and we couldn't find the end all be all best educational approach for children between 2 and 6. There's one's a little good here, one's a little good there. So instead of forcing something, instead of forcing a square peg in a round hole, my wife, I very much married up in life. She's brilliant and beautiful. She said, hey, there's 3 different curriculums that are out there that are around the world. We need to infuse them together. So Montessori, we love Montessori, the math from Montessori. We use Reggio Emilia approach out of Italy. We use an American philosopher, educational philosopher, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. All students learn differently. So we took the best of 3 different aspects, we merged them all together, and we made it our own proprietary curriculum. The thing that makes it stand out above that is I'm the only curriculum I can say in the country that I can individualize for 2 to 6-year-olds what they need, instead of having one massive approach of, hey, today we're going to learn the letter A. Okay. Maybe half the students know A. Maybe half the students are like, I don't even know letters. I'm able to identify, and we have assessments to know which students are ready to start reading, which students need a little bit more help. So I can make sure that we hit each individual student on an individualized basis so they can maximize their full potential.
So it's very customizable based on the kid and how they're going to learn best. And I think that's super important. I mean, as our kids get a little bit older, like I'm already starting to see it. Like, my first grader, our oldest, she's very smart. She has no problem sitting in a classroom setting at her desk, following directions. Like, she's a little bit of a teacher's pet, I think. Like, she's going to do fine in that kind of traditional school setting. My son, who's 3 and he's still in his half day preschool, good luck, like getting that kid to sit still, for 6-7 hours a day. Like, he's going to be bored out of his mind. And it's not because he's not smart. It's just it's going to be very difficult to keep his attention if it's just, a teacher in front of the classroom, as you said, teaching all the kids the same way. So I think this is really important. And I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole necessarily of like what's broken in the education system in the US, but it's something I'm thinking a lot more about as our kids do get older.
They teach the test. I mean, that's we can do a whole nother podcast on that question, but the main root of the problem is they're teaching for the test for state funding dollars instead of teaching to the student for what they need to learn best in life.
Well said. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. My mom's a retired high school history teacher, and out of sheer luck, she retired in 2019 before COVID came onto the scene. And she says all the time, she's like, I'm so glad that I didn't have to try to teach through all of that because it was just a mess. But yeah, she would say the same, that at the high school level it gets even worse with it being just so focused around these tests and trying to get certain results on these state mandated tests. So yeah, I think more and more parents though are thinking about these things and realizing that there should be more options out there. There are more options out there. And, something like IvyBrook for that 2 to 6 year old category, can be a really good option. And, I worked with a really great couple, I guess last year, 2023, that are now IvyBrook franchisees. And the wife, has a master's in education and had been a teacher. And then they started having kids. And so she kind of stayed home with the kids for a few years. And I can remember when I first talked to them about IvyBrook, they went off and did a little bit of research and they came back and the husband's telling me this. He's like, my wife's a little skeptical about their curriculum.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't remember the details of why she was skeptical, but thankfully, they kept an open enough mind. They got on a call, I think maybe with your wife, who took them on a deeper dive of the actual curriculum. And once she really understood the way you guys had kind of blended, these 3 different philosophies, I guess, for education together and kind of put your own, spin to it, she did a complete 180. And she's like, this makes a ton of sense. Like, this is actually very similar to how I would structure something like this if I had a chance to be the architect of my own school. So I thought I'd point that out because it does sound like you guys have put a ton of thought and research into like, how should we really structure this to make sure that the kids are getting the most that they can out of it, and that it is as customizable as it can be, and it's not a one size fits all approach. Hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, we are very proud of our program. We're very blessed and very fortunate. And, I've got a great saying that I say consistently. I would say, if not on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, that my best quality in life is that I hire people smarter than me. and I am surrounded by some brilliant minds, especially in the education space, that bring so much to our company, that have been employed with us since we started. I've got tenured employees from 16, 17 years ago that just are dynamite. And they
That's
truly
incredible.
love children, and they truly love making a difference. And I can't, I don't know the stat, Wes, but I bet our retention rate of students from year over year, unless they graduate, is probably 97, 98%. Like, once parents get into IvyBrook, they don't leave. Like, it's just,
I believe it.
it's we are very proud of the secret sauce that we've got.
Yeah, I believe that for sure, because I know it's been that way with us, with any of the, whether it's kids sports or the schools. Like, once you find a place where you're
Yeah.
really comfortable, they're comfortable, you get to know the people there that are actually, interacting with your kids, you really can't put a price on that. And it's a little bit scary to like I was telling you before we started recording, we're getting ready to move. We've been building a house, and it's in the county north of where we live now. And like, our daughter's in private school in first grade, love the school. She loves it. We are very, very bummed, that we're going to have to put her into a different school next year. And we have some apprehension around that, because it's just kind of the unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we could swing it from a logistics standpoint, like, we would keep her at that school. And I think most parents think about it the same way. How much has it changed over the last 18 years? How much has the curriculum, the model, I suppose, how much has it evolved or changed since you originally started the first location?
Yes, the curriculum, we very much pride ourselves on being a very progressive school, and we want to keep up with the times. There's a lot of daycares out there that started, 40, 50 years ago, that are starting to go out of business because they haven't been progressive, and they haven't, caught up. So that being said, being a progressive school, we really, I would say 95% of our curriculum hasn't been changed since we started it. We definitely evolve and want to advance our techniques in our teaching methodology, but at the same time, the base of our curriculum still rings true over 18 years. That being said, what we have fine-tuned as being a franchisor, right? I mean, we got 10 years of knocking our curriculum out of the park before, bringing on partners and, franchise owners. But I'll tell you, the processes and systems of helping others have evolved at light speed over the last 8 years, and bringing on more and more people. And next week, we bring on a high-level C-suite person that used to be the former president of Denny's Restaurant Group for 1,600 locations. So excited to consistently bring more people on my team. Again, I'll humbly say, smarter than me, to make all of us better as a group.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, certainly, I think with like technology evolving the way it has, you have to adapt and, maybe even incorporate some of that into the curriculum. But the fact that the majority of it's, really kind of been consistent is cool to hear, I think. So talk a little bit else about the difference, because I'm kind of shifting gears here now. So someone that's interested in, maybe becoming a franchisee with IvyBrook, there's some other interesting differences, because IvyBrook is a half-day model compared to a full-day model, right? Things like, because I remember when some of this was pointed out to me when I first started learning about IvyBrook, I hadn't connected these dots on my own, but then it made a lot of sense. You don't have to have like a school cafeteria or a kitchen,
Right?
Correct? Transportation is not something that you guys have to be responsible for. So again, compare that to some of these other full day programs, franchise or not, but that are essentially for-profit businesses. That's a component that adds a lot of startup costs. That adds a lot of overhead expense. That adds a lot of liability, I would think, and also just a lot more complexity to the business. So can you expand on that at all, or am I incorrect in any of that?
You're perfect. So before I used the term USP, unique selling propositions, and we talked about the two for the end consumer. what drives that. Now, what is the USP for someone that's interested in becoming a franchisee in the education space, right? Daycare model versus Ivy Brook. For on the Ivy Brook side, we're about 25% of the startup cost that you would get for a full day facility. Okay, a 25%. I mean, it's a fraction, but also it's because our buildings are built a little bit smaller. You're right. There is no kitchen. There is no food service. There's no lunches. We don't have infants. Students are walking and talking when they come to us. There's no busing. There's no transportation. So there's a lot of overhead that is cut. So you can just get down to what is fun, right? And what is fun is the education and having children, right? In the building. So our school's biggest difference is we're open from 8 to 4:30. Period. That's it. That's the day. We open at 8, we close at 4:30, and there's 2 different sessions of students: a morning session of students that come for 4 hours, and an afternoon session that comes for 4 hours. So for a franchisee, the day is defined. It is much shorter. Equally, it's about a third of the staff that you would have at a full day facility. Because remember, a full day facility, when you're open for 11 hours, you have to run 2 shifts of staff. That's and then
it's a long day.
More employees, more nightmares. It's just more pieces in the puzzle to try to get them all to fit and work out, man.
It's true.
And then the last thing, we follow the public school calendar, which is amazing. So when schools are closed for Thanksgiving break, or winter break for 2 weeks, or spring break or Easter break, guess what? We are too, because we're a private school. We charge an annual tuition, not a weekly or a daily rate. So when public schools close, we follow suit. So it's an amazing opportunity that, we're closed about 32 work days per year while we're still receiving income and revenue, I should say, compared to the daycares out there in the world. They're probably closed 3 days a year. So it's right. A great opportunity if somebody wants a family life balance. It's finally a business opportunity that we selfishly, my wife and I, created for ourselves because we knew we wanted to have children one day. We created a business model where we could have a work-life balance for our own future family, and now we're happy to be able to share it with others.
We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. Yeah, well, I'm glad you pointed that out, the work-life balance and just the schedule, right? Because that's usually a big motivator, at least for the type of people I usually work with. If they're exploring business ownership, obviously they want to get into something that's got good financial upside and where they feel confident they can see a return on the money and time that they invest into it. But there's usually more of a lifestyle driver to that as well, right? Mm-hmm. Where they want to get to a point where they have a little more control of their time and their schedules. And this is a really good model for something like that, which I think is a good segue into, a few other questions that I'm sure are top of mind for folks listening to this. One of which is, to be a franchisee, do you need to have a background in education? I mean, I referenced, the couple that I've placed with you guys and the wife did have a background in education, but is that necessary? Is that preferred? And kind of with that, I guess, as a follow-up, like, what is the ideal role for the franchise owner? Like, how should the franchise owner really be spending their time? Are they teaching? What should they be doing in the business? Yeah,
not a lot of our franchisees have an education background, believe it or not. Only about 25% of our franchise owners have an education background in one form or fashion of another. Majority don't. If you look at the other percentage, the common theme is they all love children. Like, I believe out of all my franchisees, I only have 2 that don't have children, maybe 3 that don't have children. So it is really, it's couples that have children and realize the importance of education. They realize the importance of they're at a chapter in their life that they want to do something good, right? Maybe it's a couple that somebody's worked through corporate America, they're burnt out, and they're like, what did I just do for the last 20, 30 years? I just helped some big conglomerate make a bunch of money. It doesn't make me feel good when I put my head down on my pillow. So now they want to be able to make an income, which IvyBrook makes a good return. But at the same time, they're doing goodwill, right? Like, you're a pillar of your community. So people that have children understand the importance of it and want to do something that feels good in their community. Gosh, it's kind of it's a win-win. So that helps.
Do you find that most of your franchisees with kids, do they have kids kind of in that age range, that IvyBrook is really geared for? At least
older.
IvyBrook.
They're older. A lot of our franchisees. Again, I have to go with the median, right? Because there's extremes on both sides. Most have children that are either in high school or in college. That seems to be the avatar. So that'll put them in their, I'll call, second half of their career in life. But they want to switch gears, right? A lot of our owners, we require a semi-absentee. So somebody doesn't, you don't have to stop your day job while this gets up and running. But a lot of my successful franchisees, they have a job where they can work remote, and they can work remote and build an office, in their building, right? So they can work remotely from their school. That's kind of cool, right? So you can work on your day job, but you can pop out during important times, meet and greet parents during drop off and pickup, have lunch with the staff, those type of things go such a long way. And it's just customer service, and it's really just not that hard to do the right thing.
No, it's pretty clear to, see what the right thing is in this type of business, I feel like. And, it seems to me like this is a business where, as you've already mentioned, right, you're giving back to the community. You're, obviously helping kids and the families of these kids. So, franchisees that are really comfortable getting involved in the community and kind of being a brand ambassador, that seems like it would be a really good use of the franchise owner's time, with something like this. It's not necessarily being in the school every hour that it's open, or, you're not necessarily teaching, any of the students. It's bigger picture, oversight and making sure that the team has what they need to be successful, and then, getting out in the community and spreading the word. I know we're kind of coming up on time here, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. Is there anything I haven't asked you about, that I should have, or that you want to make sure the listeners know and understand about IvyBrook Academy?
No, I think as far as IvyBrook, always happy to help people out. If anybody is interested, would love to tell them more, send them information. I am a big believer on education. I'm a huge believer. I am not a salesman in life, but I am in the education business in life. And if somebody ever looks me up online on LinkedIn, I love educating people about IvyBrook Academy and the opportunity it provides. And I equally love educating people on real estate. That's been my background for 24 years, and I'm pretty passionate on the real estate investment side as well.
Yeah, you are, and also involved with Jeremy Dyer, who I've had as a guest on the podcast before. You guys are partners in Starting Point Capital. Do you want to give a quick overview of what Starting Point Capital is, if you have time? I know we're kind of
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good on time.
Here, but if you're good, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the stuff that you have going on the real estate side.
Yeah, I know, right? How does a guy that owns a franchise company in the education space all of a sudden start talking about real estate? Well,
Yeah.
my background is real estate. I've actually been in real estate professionally since age 19. When Ivy Brook got started, guess who had to be the first commercial real estate broker for the company? My wife hired me. Hopefully that was a good move for her. Um,
Yeah. You're
and,
still married and still business
I'm still
partners
married,
18 years later.
like she
So,
hasn't fired me yet. She still gives me that
yeah.
co-founder title. So that's worked all right. But I love flying around the country and I love approving sites and looking at sites for new IvyBrook locations. That being said, I'm passionate about real estate being a great long-term wealth builder. I do not believe in get rich quick schemes.
No.
But real estate has made more millionaires than anything else in our country's history. That is a fact. I think business ownership might be up there as well. Actually, it might be a high number two or maybe number
Yeah.
one. But that being said, I own I'm invested and own 17 different rental properties around the country. Some residential, some commercial, and a whole lot of multifamily apartment complexes. My partner Jeremy and I got another partner Nathan. The three of us have a company called Starting Point Capital that we were investing so much of our time and money, hard-earned money, into real estate opportunities. People are coming to us and saying, "What are you guys doing? Like, can you
Yeah.
educate us?" So, just as any other person in the education space would say, yes, right? Like education should be free.
Yeah.
So we came up with a couple books and guidelines and pamphlets for people to learn more about how to passively invest in real estate and getting monthly returns. So I love real estate. I love even more getting rental checks on a monthly basis. But what I love the most is tenants not calling me. So we've put this company in place it's been in business for over 2 years now, and we've oh man, I think we've helped put over people invest over $26 million over just last year alone into
Wow.
multifamily investments that we put our own money into. So we are not getting paid to advertise anything. Just if Jeremy, my partners, and I decide to go in on a project, then we just equally send that opportunity to our network and say, hey, we're going in on this. If anybody else wants to as well, then here's kind of the detail. So it's all
Yeah.
educated.
Which I mean, the education piece is so important, in real estate. Like we've done a little bit of real estate investing, but not nearly as much as we want to going forward. But it can be kind of overwhelming when you first start looking into it, especially if
Yeah.
you don't have a background in real estate. Like
Oh
just
yeah,
figuring out the type of real estate that makes sense for you to invest in. There's so many different options,
there is.
so many gurus online, right? That are, self storage is the best, Airbnb is the best. Like there's, depending on who you're listening to, there's just so many different options that one could look at. And what I know you guys really kind of specialize in at Starting Point Capital is multifamily.
Right.
It's not easy to find good deals, and that's a big part of what you
Yeah.
guys are doing, and you're investing in it yourselves, which is huge, right? Like I would think you don't want to put money in on a deal that someone's bringing to you, but they're not putting their money where their mouth is, and they're not investing their own money in the deal. But you guys have some very, very strategic kind of relationships that now allow you to bring really good opportunities on the multifamily investing side to the people that you've been able to connect with and help educate. So it's really cool, and something that I know personally, I'm interested in continuing to learn more about. And I think the big difference between like being a good real estate investor and a good business owner is, business ownership's never going to be entirely passive, right? Real estate can be basically entirely passive, right? And so I think in order to really keep leveling up from a time and financial freedom standpoint, that passive investment component's huge because, you know, everyone's skill sets and bandwidths are going to be a little bit different, but most people are going to have a limit on like how many businesses they can operate and
Right.
oversee and do that well. And then especially if like the lifestyle component of it's important to you, even if you can, run 4 or 5 businesses like Elon Musk or someone, like you're not going to have any real quality of life to go with that. So
Right.
like that's what my wife and I are learning is, as we've had a little bit of success with owning our own businesses. Like we sold one of our businesses back in November because it was taking us in the opposite direction from a lifestyle standpoint. We were making some money in that business.
Yeah.
There was tons of upside in that business, but it was a stressful business that came with a lot of headaches. And, we were, quite frankly, if I'm being honest, we were just working harder than we wanted to, and we kind of sat down at one point. We're like, you know what, this is like the opposite of what we started down this path for. Like our kids are at this age where we want to spend as much time with them as we possibly can. So something's got to go. And we kind of looked at, at the time, the 3 different businesses that we had, and it was very clear which of those businesses needed to go. So all of that to say, like, our focus has definitely shifted to like, all right, we need to go educate ourselves on real estate because we've done very little of it thus far. Which I think is just, finding people that you trust and, they have experience and, are willing to kind of guide you. And that's exactly what you guys are doing at Starting Point Capital. And it's funny because I got introduced to Jeremy. I'd already known about Ivy Brook and met you at least once or twice in passing. No clue until like, I don't know, 6 months ago that you guys were partners together at Starting Point.
Yeah. It's funny how world. It's all the older I get, Wes, I realize it's all about who you know, not what you know. And just like real estate, right? Like, I've got real estate licenses. I got a real estate degree from college. But it's who I know. It's these, I call it pocket listings, right? That's whether it's a residential property or commercial property. If someone's online or on social media, like with a really loud voice telling you how good an opportunity is, you should probably question that. Why did they spend thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to advertise that to you? Is it really that successful? Is it really that good of a return? Or is the guy that you probably, are rubbing elbows with that probably is going to get you a better opportunity? That's kind of my take on it. If it's that good of a deal, it should spread within your own network like wildfire. You shouldn't need to go.
Right, exactly. You shouldn't have to pay money to try to reach the masses with it if it's really that good of a deal, or if you're that much of an expert, right? Like,
then why do you need to advertise if it's that good of a deal, right? My network of folks that are interested in it should be more than that.
It's always the people selling courses that crack me up, right? Because it's like, look, if you're so good at whatever it is you do, whether it's, selling stuff on Amazon or day trading or whatever, like, why are you spending all this time and energy to sell a $5,000 course? Just go do more of what you're the expert in, and you should be able to make a lot more than $5,000 per course or whatever. But and look, there's a lot of different options for real estate. I mean, it sounds like you're pretty well diversified in real estate. I've got a guy coming on the podcast, I think in a couple of weeks, that they are very similar from what I've gathered so far to what you guys do at Starting Point Capital, but they're focused exclusively on self-storage.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. There's people doing that. For what, and I'll learn more once I have him on the podcast, but we had a brief conversation and it sounds like he got introduced to that, started meeting people. Right. So now he's got people that he knows and are bringing good opportunities to him. So there's different ways to do it. I think the real trick is, understanding it enough and then having a good network, people that you trust that are going to give you good advice and help introduce you to good opportunities before they get taken, because the good opportunities don't stick around for very long. Yeah.
The Jeremy, my partner, you mentioned, we got this saying, you invest with somebody that you know, like, and trust. If you don't know, like, and trust someone, I'd probably walk away from the deal.
Totally. I think it makes sense. It makes sense in franchising in real estate and any type of a business partnership. You should probably use that same criteria, in your personal relationships too. You should probably know, like, and trust the people that you're gonna hang out with and spend your time with. So I think that's good, sound advice. I could talk to you about this stuff forever, and wanted to say thanks. While we're actually recording, you were telling me you flew in from Louisville. We're at the PGA tournament and got off the plane and ran straight to jump on the podcast. So appreciate you being here, but even more so appreciate you sitting down and talking with me after what sounds like a pretty long day.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well,
Drew,
Wes, thank you for having me. It was truly an honor. Love talking about IvyBrook, franchising, or real estate anytime with you in the future.
Yeah, man, it's such a cool concept that you and your wife have built, and such a cool story, behind it, how you guys came up with the idea, made it a reality. And, now you're growing it into a national brand, which is super inspiring and obviously a great thing for kids and the families of the kids that go to your school. So can't wait to watch you guys continue to grow the brand, and appreciate everyone for tuning in. We'll put links to websites and social media handles in the show notes. So, if you're interested for your own kids, want to see if there's an IvyBrook in your area, we will make all of that easy for you guys to find. But Drew McWilliams, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Wes.